In an ever-evolving digital landscape, for your business to thrive, you must adapt or die. Welcome to Marketing in the Age of AI, the podcast helping you harness the power of AI and marketing tools to revitalize and grow your business. And now here's your host, marketing expert and author of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI, Emanuel Rose.
Welcome to this episode of Marketing in the Age of AI. Thanks for joining me. I'm excited today to talk with Nick Smith, who is an agency owner an agency that builds and maintains websites, and has been able to, with his background in IT and some other things, he's able to have the philosophical conversation about where we are in the flow of technology, and if we're at a place where the computers are going to be running the humans, or the humans are going to continue to run the computers. Nick, thanks so much for joining me.
Hey, Emanuel, thanks so much for having me on. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate your time today. Thanks for being here. Well, let's just get your temperature in general about the AI tools that we're seeing in marketing, and how you're implementing those, and maybe some of the tools that you're using on a daily basis.
Sure. I mean, as you know, AI is taking over, just about every aspect, I think, in every industry of our lives. I see our team members use it nearly, in every one of our different disciplines. And so, I'm president of Loud Canvas Media Group. We're a series of brands that host over 1,000 websites for over 400 different clients, from the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world right down to Main Street America mom and pops. And, our team members are using it every single day, whether it's, figuring out some content strategy pieces, or maybe even crunching numbers with Excel spreadsheets, or running algorithms, weighted algorithms, all the way down to, crafting pre-production creatives for things like on-scene commercial shoots that we might have come up. And so, AI is taking over in every aspect. And then, our clients are seeing it as well. You look at the healthcare space, and you can see that entire industry is being transformed by AI, whether it's diagnostics, disease detection, personalized medicine, or administrative efficiency. I mean, it's happening everywhere.
Yeah, I just saw a news clip recently where they were talking about an entire clinic that's nothing but basically AI chatbots to do medical diagnosis.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, research and development, in terms of what it looks like to find new opportunities and new, patient population groups that might require treatments, or, are best serviced, by some of these these things are being formulated, and, ideas are coming, by leveraging and utilizing artificial intelligence. And so it is pretty wild. It's crazy to think, not even just from a diagnostic perspective. But fast forward a little bit, as we've seen robotics in the healthcare space. Imagine an autonomous robot deciding to do a full-blown surgery on you after you just went through a chatbot and found your diagnosis.
Wow, I know it's hard to picture allowing that to happen to me at this point in time. I still want to have the human in the loop. I don't know about you.
Hey, I subscribe to Joshua Harris's theory of the human in the chicken farm, and I think that we're much more likely to end up as a human in a chicken farm than we are, stopping this thing from happening. I mean, it's no surprise that we've seen technology just in our lifetimes, 100x. It seems like the half-life of technology just keeps increasing and increasing. And certainly the internet changed everything. The ability for information to be on demand has changed everything. Now we look at, quantum healthcare, we look at quantum computing, the idea of, instant moment, beyond time and space. You have to wonder, at what point exactly that, are we actually serving the robots instead of the robots serving us, or serving the computers instead of the computers serving us?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting. I mean, as an animal, our goal is to conserve energy, right? And so it only makes sense that we would have a tool like this that could do as much of the work for us as possible, so that we have stores of energy to survive, right? Like that's one part of the three brains that we have. I think it starts to be incumbent upon us to pick the spots to use the technology, and on an individual basis, and then on the ethical basis and the moral basis. That's a bigger challenge because there's a lot of forces at work between commerce and the government who you kind of regulate what happens in culture.
No doubt, and unfortunately, as we are aware, government's leg has historically been slow. It's been slow to act. It's been a late adopter. At the point, I think a lot of consumers, I think a lot of the markets are starting to wake up to the fact that there are even greater controls beyond just your established government that are pushing agendas and are spending a lot of money to see advancements in their favor. Artificial intelligence is not the least of these. Transhumanism, robotics is not the least of these.
Yeah, and I think the challenge is, like you brought up, if there's no human in the loop, then we leave way too much to the code that's been written and the potential for malfunction, which we see with every piece of electronics that we own. We've all experienced the malfunction of your car not starting because you have one thing out that it has nothing to do with the engine running, but it's a breakdown in the electronics.
Certainly. I mean, there's going to be a series of time where all of these Internet of Things, all of these, applications of artificial intelligence and robotics and real-time communication. When I mean real-time communication, I should say quantum communication, without gap in time. There's going to be some smoothing out of these tools, but I think you're seeing it in the progression of tools like ChatGPT. It's not long before these tools start to get those kinks worked out. And all of a sudden, we have AI art generation that is nearly undetectable to the naked human eye. Something that, as a kid, we only dreamed of. Imagine being able to just think something and then have it show up. You always envy the artist who gets to sit
Right.
there and who can paint exactly what's in their brain. And I've always just envied that, or the musician who can think of a tune and put into words or a feeling that, it encapsulates a human experience. But the reality is that these pieces of technology are growing at a rapid rate. We are not slowing down. And I think that the inevitability is that they, in a multi-model unit where there's agents that are learning from one another, what's happening is they're self-learning and they're self-teaching and they're self-learning. And
Yep.
to what means and to what ends is the real question. And do we know for sure? And so I actually, I think that this is a much more a much more dire situation for humanity than just, how are these tools being applied for commerce and, how can we all benefit monetarily on this? My concern is where does the train stop? And if we, does the progression of technology ever slow down? And at what point does the human become, subservient to the technology that we've created? Isn't it the most biblical story that we would create our own God and that God would turn against us? I mean, my goodness, isn't it biblical?
And in some ways it is, I agree. And so that's why I always just fall back to making sure that we have very clear outcomes for it and that we're deploying tools and software and robots that satisfy very specific needs. And that way we're always in charge of it, much like you would always be in charge of your car when you're driving to the grocery store.
Good luck. Tell me how those Tesla drivers feel about that. Give it 5 years. That's what I say, and they won't allow us to drive anymore.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting progression, and that's what we all have to be involved in some of the legislation and the conversations with people who make those decisions, for sure.
Do you think that would be enough?
Well, ultimately, that's the driver, right? Is that it gets embedded in legal code, and then that changes the course of of commerce based on government regulation. So,
Do you think the criminals will stand to listen to the legal codes that we put in place?
well, I mean, let's not be naive. We know that criminals, by definition, don't follow codes, but
That's my
there's
fear.
there's
Yeah.
always there's always the light in the dark. So we
Yeah.
have to accept that as reality also, right? I have a friend who works in the gaming industry who works at a casino, and he always comes back from the conferences, the security conferences, and he's like, "We're barely 1 nanosecond ahead of the bad guys breaking into our slot machines."
It's wild, isn't it? Isn't it wild? And
The
I
other
guess
one, yeah, go ahead, yeah.
no, I was gonna say, I guess the reason to consider and to work through all of this is because at the end of the day, for somebody like me with a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, one who's just coming in from school right now, I
Yeah.
have to wonder what is society gonna look like in 30 or 40 years? What are my grandkids gonna grow up in? Will there be a chance for them to grow up in it?
Yeah.
Or will they be like the dogs that you can hear? Will my kids be like the dogs that you hear, relegated to a chain, fence and in a prison while the AIs are out running whatever they're running, to whatever ends they decide to run it to? At what point will they say, "Hey, we don't need humanity anymore," right?
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that is it is out of the box. We know that, and so we have to figure out how we can harness and control it. I think
Do you think
because it's
it's
not.
Do you think it's the Elon Musk approach where we join forces with it, so that way we might have a level up to maybe have a because the compute power with a Neuralink, my goodness, wouldn't that be wonderful? I think he's got one in there, don't you? Elon's got to have a Neuralink in there.
No, I'm convinced he's an alien. So that kind of genius is not an accident. Yeah, the Neuralink I think is fascinating. I love that he's working with people who are incapacitated otherwise, and I think that is a good best use for that technology.
Certainly.
I think we're also in a transition where we're going to see another generation of Luddites, right? That were from the early 1900s, where they're like, we don't accept these technological changes, and so there'll be a bigger division between cultures. Essentially, the culture that is this. We got to go to Mars. We got to have the Neuralink embedded. We're going to have the Tesla drive for us, and there's going to be those of us who are still thinking about things from the nature perspective, and being happy to be on a farm and live in a slower time.
I really hope that that's an option for us. Genuinely, I think that is the best case solution. But I think you're right. Unfortunately, I think we are going to have two different societies emerge here over the upcoming years, and it's going to be technology war that's spurred on by the level that artificial intelligence has in our lives. I mean, look, I went to Thanksgiving. I was out visiting a different city that I hadn't been to previously. I was in Charleston. It was beautiful, South Carolina, and I walked into the store there, and don't you know, you could pay with your palm. I hadn't experienced that anywhere else. Hadn't experienced it anywhere else. But all of a sudden, you have to start to think, wow, what signs of the times that I could walk out of a store without interacting with anybody, going like this, and all of a sudden there's some sort of bank account attached to my palm. What magic is this, Amazon? What are you doing? But for somebody who doesn't want to participate in a society like that, or a cashless society, it's going to be very interesting for that society, for those folks who decide, just like you said, they'd like a more simple paced life, and maybe head to Yellowstone if that exists.
Well, yeah. I mean, you look at the demographics of the United States and the population centers, right, are along the outsides on the coasts, and the center part of the country tends to move at a slower pace. And most of those people are by choice. A lot of those people are by choice.
Yeah.
They don't want to be in the city. So, and they want to have the freedom that's associated with mechanical things versus digital things.
You think are you almost saying that we're there, a leading indicator? You're almost saying that what you've seen. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Every year I go on a big hunting excursion between California and Saskatchewan, and I run through rural Western United States. And I can tell you from sitting and having conversations in coffee shops and pubs that there are people who will never, they'll have to be forced to have a smartphone things like that. So
Mm.
there's a technological divide, and there's things that I won't do. I don't like the biometric tracking. Like I'm not interested in that. Right.
Sure.
So that's kind of one of my lines. I'm not interested in having a car that can be turned off by
There
the
you
federal
go.
government.
Interesting,
Right.
isn't it? Isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
look, if COVID restrictions taught us anything, it's that society will bear a lot of regulation and a lot of dictation from people that they've elected and put into power. And so it's interesting. We may have personal lines that we draw, which are so important for us and for our family, eventually our local communities, whichever we associate with. But I think awareness and conversation is so important, and forward thinking and having at least a perspective around it for yourself. I don't know that so many people, are thinking into the future. And maybe had they been thinking into the future 5, 10, 15 years ago, if this message had been a little bit more relevant. It's so difficult because obviously we only notice it. Our beliefs are only changed by our experiences. And so as we experience it more and more, we go, oh, wow, this is the expression of something I didn't realize downstream what was going to take place in my life by this worldview or this perspective or this technology. And now here we are. But I think we may be on the verge, if not already to the point where even drawing conscious or awareness towards the societal issues as a whole, we may be too late.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting perspective. I think we're not getting rid of AI. We know that, right? We're not getting rid of software and AI autonomous bots or whatever you want to call those autonomous helpers. I think it is about having to have a philosophy of care around them, just like we would around our staff and how we take care of our staff, how we take care of anything inside a business.
You assign you assign a person trait towards AI when you speak to it. I was going to go nuclear. I was going to say a level of care like we would nuclear because I assign a level of destruction, a level of power associated with it. That's interesting.
Yeah, I see it as a tool, and we have lots of tools that are very destructive. Nuclear is a very destructive tool, but it is something that we regulate at a level, sometimes properly, sometimes improperly. So,
do you assign a personhood to it because AI becomes sentient at some point?
I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't know that I believe that it's sentient. I think it. I mean, obviously, Elon Musk believes it's going to be sentient because I think he's the most afraid of it, of anybody that I've seen speak about it. I think the human spark is something that's given by the power, the supreme power, the energy that moves through all things by God. I think it's still a creation of humans. It's not going to be sentient on its own. Could it control a portion of the population? Absolutely. Could it have enough knowledge from the way that it's learning from all of the activity from supercomputing? Absolutely. Is it going to be tough to defeat if it gets dark? I mean, you've seen the robots and the robot dogs. I don't know what you do.
So scary. So scary. Hey, look, on a real note, I mean, we see AI and its use in weaponry and what's going on in Syria, what's going on in Ukraine. I mean, the drone is the most horrendous sort of I just can't picture. Unfortunately, I can picture, but it's just so hard to imagine. And it's just the reality of how far weaponry has gone. So cold. So, there's just, and yet so cold. And yet on the other side of this device that's about to take a life is another human life. And there's this moment of connection of humanity, right? And it's a little bit, I don't know why it seems different than other forms of weaponry. I'm not quite sure why it feels any different than, shooting a gun or something at somebody or being close and stabbing them. Maybe that's just it. Maybe it's that you're not present, that it really starts to hit. It's, it's like, wow, the devastation, and that there's an actual human life behind either side, regardless of the politics or anything, either side, that a life is lost in a moment through something we created like technology without any sort of human interaction. You could press a button and, wow, something about that's hard to process.
It is. It does bring up the questions of morality, and and we've as a people, we've already taken a kind of a perspective on that, right? Our government has determined what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, even though you and I might disagree with it.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's some sort of rule of engagement that has been deemed acceptable, which I don't know. How often do these Geneva Convention rules of engagement get updated? I mean, what if someone invented a new type of drone tomorrow or a new type of AI tomorrow? Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. We're both participating in the adoption and the application of it, and but with
both have a level of responsibility to bear, huh?
Yeah, and that's why I took the perspective of being authentic, of being human, and remembering the other humans that are on the side of your messaging, and we can't lose sight of the humanity and what our job is as humans, as business people, as marketers, which is to present things to people who are interested in a way that's true and transparent.
Yeah, and I suppose we raise human consciousness, just even if it's only by a small degree, and bringing awareness around a conversation and allowing somebody to formulate an opinion on something they otherwise wouldn't even consider, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're constantly, as dynamic humans, looking at our ethics and our morals. And as times change, we have to update what we believe or take a stand and work to, like you say, at least have conversations with people. So,
well, this has been enjoyable. Thanks so much for having me today.
Well, Nick, I appreciate it. I think it's a good conversation, and it's one that we will be having for probably for the rest of our careers. So,
God willing, let's hope.
That's right. All right. Well, if people want to get in touch with you and talk about websites or marketing or AI, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I love having conversations like this. I love helping people accomplish whatever strategig goals they may be trying to accomplish. It's all a part of the human experience. And so if you want to connect, want to touch base, you can reach out to me. Head over to loudcanvas.com. There's a little chat bubble on the bottom right. And, you've got access to me through there. No pitch, no sale, just happy to connect.
All right. Well, Nick, I'm grateful for you spending time today, and thank you very much.
Likewise. Thank you.
Okay. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to Marketing in the Age of AI. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Your copy of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI is available at Amazon.com or EmanuelRose.com. You can also connect with Emanuel on LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.